This is All Things Caregiving from Breathing Spaces.
Hi, my name is Cindy Mariner. I'm the founder of Breathing Spaces. Welcome to our podcast, All Things Caregiving. I am very excited to be here today with my co-host, Cindy Gum. And we are really excited today to have our special guest, Terrence Ho. Terrence, we've heard about you through some of our affiliates that we've spoken to, and we are really excited to have you with us here today.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Absolutely. So, Terrence, one of the things that I noticed and have spoken to you about, your caregiving role has been pretty diverse. In my case, I watched my mom care for my dad, then I did my own caregiving with mom, but you've had a little varying caregiving role experience. Could you tell us more about that?
Sure. And I just want to say that this is actually the first time this year that I'm actually talking about my caregiving experience
Oh.
since my brother's death in October last year.
Mhm.
So I'm really thankful to have this opportunity to be here with the two of you to actually talk again about my caregiving experience. Um, so over the course of my life, I've had the opportunity to be a caregiver in different capacities to four different people. I would say the first person would be my brother. So my younger brother's his name is Torrance. He's 4 years younger than me, and he got his diagnosis with Duchenne muscular dystrophy when he was around 5 or 6 years old. So I would have been around 10. And so even though at that time I didn't consider myself a caregiver, but as his older brother, I was already thrusted into a role of a caregiver, or at least a sibling caregiver. Um, and so he was the first person that, as the older sibling, already had the responsibilities of ensuring that my brother was taken care of. Um, so he's the first person. Um, then the second person that I had a caregiving role for, much later on in my life, is my grandfather. So in my late teens, early 20s, as my grandfather was aging, um, there was a lot of talk around like, oh, our family couldn't take care of him, so then needing to say like move him into long-term care. So really providing more like more like just providing support since I wasn't a primary caregiver to my grandfather. So then having that experience of even supporting with the transition of him living with us families because he had several kids, and then in the transition into long term care. So I had some experience with that. Um, then the third person that I provided care for is actually my brother's former personal support worker.
Hmm.
And this is because she was an immigrant to Canada, had no family in country. So when she started having physical ailments, um, and actually she became part of our family because she took care of my brother for so many years, that I took on the role as her, at least in Canada, we call it like a power of attorney for personal care. So I took on that role to advocate care for her, because she was diagnosed with dementia and all that kind of stuff. So needing to like make sure that she was safely cared for. Um, so that was the third person. And then the last person that I then took care of is our mom. And back in 2019, she was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer. So I became her primary care and advocate, going through the kind of cancer care system. Um, so yeah, and then kind of like walked her through and walked our family through that whole process of her going through treatment and then also like the palliative care system here too. So I've had a wide range of different uh, care experience with all kinds of different versions of care for the aging, cancer, more like kind of like a progressive degenerative condition in my brother and dementia. So I feel like in my 40 years of life, I've had quite a few experiences. of taking care of so many different types of people, all of them who I love and care for. Um, and that has also influenced the decisions I made even in my career. That's why in the last 10 years, I work in the assistive technology and complex rehab, like manufacturing industry, because I've seen what good like technology can do for the person who needs care, but then also for the caregivers, because it also like helps complement the work that we do to take care of our loved ones. Um, so that yeah, that's why I do what I do now.
Can you share a little? You really have my curiosity picked here. So, all of these experiences, they've led you toward a career choices. So, can you say a little bit more about that? I'd love for people to know more.
Yes.
Yeah, sure. Like I think growing up with Torrance, like and seeing yeah the different equipment that he uses and the barriers that he faced even with certain equipment like a wheelchair or different other like medical equipment support. Yeah, like I've seen that. I think that was a big influence to me because I'm like, wow, like these equipment has empowered my brother to do certain things. But I also kept seeing different barriers that my brother would face, be it in work or um, in in just like everyday going around the environment that we live in. So it's always kind of piqued my interest in terms of like just watching my brother needing to navigate this world that I felt like perhaps I could use my skills that I'm learning in school to help my brother and perhaps even help others like my brother. And so a lot of our friends, both my brother and my friends, yeah, also live with disabilities too. So there's always been an interest in that. And so like throughout university, like studying business technology, in my heart, there was always this feeling of like, there's got to be something I could do. Wasn't sure what it was. Um, and so it took a lot of like experimenting. Like I worked in a variety of industries even before I went into this space of assistive tech. Just because I was told by like our parents and stuff. It's like, ah, work a steady job. So I worked for like the government. I worked for higher like university. I worked for aerospace corporations, and so I've like done all these different things. But there's always been a part of me that felt like, given my lived experience as a sibling caregiver, and then also kind of like supporting our grandfather and our family, like I'm like, yeah, there's got to be something that I could do in utilization of my like business and technology skill set into an area that could also help other people like my brother and like my family.
Yeah.
So it took a lot of experimenting. Like I didn't really know how to get into this industry because I didn't have any family and friends that were in it. Um, and it really started off with when, after my brother graduated from college, and he, with his condition, he decided to not pursue the career that he studied in, and he studied law. And he didn't want to go into like doing that stuff. So I said, okay, so what do you want to do? And he's like, oh, I'm not sure. And I remember having a conversation with Torrance. It's like, oh, like, what's your dream job? Um, and because at that time, my brother was really big into a power wheelchair hockey. So it's like kind of like floor hockey, but in power chairs. Very big in Canada and like northern US, just uh, because hockey.
Lucky.
And so my brother was like MVP goaltender. He like repped Canada and Toronto and like many international competitions. So his dream, what he said to me, he's like, "Oh, I want to be an NHL goaltender, like a professional hockey goaltender." And we both laughed because we know physically that was not possible. Um, and so then he said, so I asked him, well, what's the second best thing? And he's like, well, I wouldn't mind like writing about kind of like para sports. And I was like, oh, that sounds like reasonable. And then so that kind of kickstarted off with us actually creating our own not-for-profit and website where my brother was reporting on para sports. He was reporting on his own league, his own hockey league that he was playing in. And then a lot of our other friends with disabilities started to say, hey, can we write? Can we participate? And yeah, so for like almost 8 years, we had been running this website where we were reporting on accessibility stories and issues and challenges. And that was kind of my first foray into like the disability space. Um, and then to get myself acquainted with the network, and meeting people that were creating new innovations and all that kind of stuff. And that's where how I went from working in corporate, starting a not-for-profit while working full time,
Mhm.
and then slowly made the transition into the space of assistive technology and complex rehab manufacturing, just because of my wanting to align my like lived experience as a caregiver, my kind of like training in business technology, um, like into kind of one thing. And it took many years. It didn't just happen overnight. Um, and yeah, so I'm just really, even last year, like I think last year was maybe like more than 10 years since I've kind of been in this kind of space and area. And I had to like kind of pinch myself because I'm like, oh, wow, like after 10 years, I'm really doing what I kind of dreamed about doing like over 10 years ago, of being able to talk about my caregiving experience and sharing with many people, and being part of companies in the last 10 years, developing innovations that could help people with disabilities and the aging. Um, and yeah, so yeah, it's come a long way. It's been quite the adventure of like caring for so many people and then now using my lived experience in many different ways now.
What a
Wow.
tremendous, I love this.
I'm dying to know, can you share that website with our audience? Is there a way they can access
We've kind of
this?
stopped actually producing content
Uh-huh.
more than I would say 6 years ago.
Mhm.
Actually even longer than that now. But the content is still up. So the website is actually enables.me, enables me. And the articles are still up and running.
Oh,
There's
no,
just no
that's
new,
great. Yeah.
yeah, there's just no new content on it.
I love, Terrence, how you pulled all of that together. It's not, well, it's kind of not unlike what I've done here, right? Taken my caregiving days and pulled it into a company to help support folks.
Yeah.
And so I love hearing that. I absolutely love it. You knowing that you have gone through this many different levels of caregiving, I think our audience, I would actually like to hear what were your like give us three of your pain points because so many times people don't want to talk about those out loud. What do you think your biggest three, just give us three pain points perhaps of being a family caregiver?
Or a sibling caregiver.
Sibling
Because,
caregiver, right?
so especially for a
Yeah,
younger brother and from a young age.
yes.
So you may have some wisdoms that learned from your learned experience.
Share that. It would be terrific.
So the first one I would say as a sibling caregiver, especially at a young age, is not like one, not really knowing uh like what my role is in a family. So for example, and this is actually pretty common where because having spoken with a lot of other siblings, is that our parents typically don't talk to us about what's going on.
Right.
So we're just kind of there to like observe. It's like, okay, I think I understand, but at a young age, it's also hard to comprehend. So I think a challenge is just around like at a young age being to grasp the situation and then feeling like also needing to like feeling a sense of responsibility, especially as like the older sibling too. And I've met some younger sibling caregivers that also kind of feel the same way, where we kind of then also feel responsible for our sibling. And at such a young age, without our parents really like telling us what's going on and maybe reminding us, hey, like you could also just be a kid too, then all of a sudden we're also shouldering a lot of what our parents is feeling too.
I
Mhm.
thought of
So I,
that. Yeah, that's a big
um,
point. Would it have helped if you had had a little bit more communication from your parents about what was going on? I'm just wondering if it would have helped you.
Possibly, I don't know if at that young age I would have fully been able to comprehend, because all my comprehension at that time would be had been, hey, why does my brother get more attention than me?
Ah,
Right? So I don't know if at that young age I would have been able to understand. Say it's like, oh, your brother has been diagnosed with Duchenne muscular dystrophy. Like, we'll still make time for you, but we're gonna have to give all the time to your brother, right, for all the doctor's appointment stuff. So I don't know if at that time I would have fully comprehended, but perhaps if our parents were able to talk to us about it, may have maybe gave us a sense of like, oh, okay, like I then understand why you have to give more time to my brother.
Yeah.
So I would say that was certainly a challenge
Nice.
growing up, where because I felt like, whoa, why does my brother get more attention than me? And then the only way for me to get attention is actually to then become a caregiver, because our mom was also a single mom, so she had to really then work and then take care of my brother. Uh, that then I then grew into a role that then got attention from our mom, to be like, oh, okay, the only way for me to get my mom's attention is to then help my brother. Which then, of course, leads to other things that I went to years of therapy for. So I would say that would be like one challenge, for at least in my experience, a sibling caregiver would face, especially for a young carer.
Mhm. That's really important to point out here. Thank you for that.
yeah. Thank you, Terrence.
Yeah.
I guess the second one, and this is kind of more generic, would be uh, the self-identification that I am a caregiver,
Mm.
and actually didn't like identify as one until perhaps my 30s. And yeah, so when I started hearing the term caregiver, I was like, oh, I think that's what I do. uh, and with that, like self-identification, I was then able to start looking for resources to like help me. Uh, but then from like my teens into my like late 20s, early 30s, I didn't. So then I didn't look for like caregiver specific type like resources to like help. So I'd say that would be another challenge of just the willingness or understanding of like self-identification. And I know a lot of people don't self-identify as caregivers because a lot of the roles that we take to care for someone is of a brother, of a son, right? Like a husband, right? Grandparents, right? So I think we don't identify as a caregiver. So then we also perhaps missed opportunities to receive resources that could actually help us. Um, and for me, yeah, I didn't consider myself a caregiver, so I didn't access any of the caregiving resources. And I see that, yeah, when our mom was a primary caregiver to my brother, also never received any resources, because then our focus is solely on the person that we're caring for and not on ourselves.
Right.
So I'd say that was another challenge. And once I identified myself as a caregiver, I was able to advocate for myself a little bit more and get more support to help me so that I could better help the people I was caring for. And that made a big difference. But until that happened, yeah, I kind of felt like kind of on my own, especially as a sibling caregiver. None of my friends had to care for like siblings like that. So for many years, I felt like I was just on my own. Um, so it wasn't until that self-identification that then I was able to find groups, of people that was like, oh, you also identify as caregivers, cool. And in Canada, we're certainly not as robust as in the US around like sibling caregiving, where at least when I finally identified myself as a caregiver and a sibling caregiver, I was able to find like a sibling caregiver like group in Canada, and that kind of made a difference, because then I was able to like hear other people's stories and be like, oh yeah, like what you're thinking about, I'm thinking about that too.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
so yeah, so that really helped.
Right. Right. I think that you're hitting on a really important point there. It's the identification as a caregiver, whether it's you're caring for your husband, whether you're caring for your wife. You don't. It doesn't really necessarily click that caregiving thing. I know it didn't for me. It was my mom. I mean, what? Of course, I'm doing this, right?
Yeah.
But then once you put yourself into that slot, then you can start reaching out and seeing those resources out there available. And you can't do this alone. I mean, you can, but it's not advisable to do alone. There is so much support out there. No question about that.
Yeah.
I know that we're getting close here to our schedule for the podcast. I would love to hear Terrence in your closing. You've been through so much. You're doing so much in the world. What's your biggest balancing point? For me, it's going out into my garden because I zone in. It's my meditation. It's my mind balancing point. What's your go-to?
So I'd say two things.
Okay.
I'd say the first one that is my go-to, but not my day-to-day go-to, is to have a strong foundation of support. And this may take some time to build, but for me, over the years, having a foundation of support that includes like informal, like non-professional support, be it like I was part of like a men's support group, like these type of stuff, and then more recently in the last 5 years, then turning to therapy and counseling. Now these are now part of my foundation support. So even post, I guess like I could call myself post caregiving, I still utilize all of these supports because I know that it helps me just in life in general. So I'd say that's one thing. And then I guess second thing is, yeah, besides like going out for walks and stuff in nature, I'd say the practice of gratitude has been tremendously important for me. Because even on the most difficult days of caregiving, or any difficult day, uh, being able to reflect at the end of the day that, yes, today was hard, today was frustrating, today was sad, and I was able to still identify something that happened that day that helped me be grateful for something. Um, and so having practiced my daily gratitude practice for over 1,500 days now, publicly, has been tremendously valuable. Especially in these last 1,500 days, it was a lot of caregiving. So that I would say would be like two things: the foundation of support, and then this like daily kind of practice of even just like 30 seconds of gratitude.
Which is emotional support, and how important that ability to self-validate and to really name, claim, and validate those emotions with gratitude. Thank you for sharing that. What an amazing journey you are on. And I so appreciate your sharing your story about your brother. What an amazing brother you are to him. And thank you for sharing this with us.
Mhm.
You're
Yes,
welcome.
absolutely, Terrence. And you made a really wonderful point there at the end was your caregiving days don't stop. They change, but they don't stop.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for bringing that up. Tremendous, really tremendous. It has been an absolute pleasure, Terrence. Thank you so much for being with our audience today. Cindy, always thank you for joining us here. And Terrence, we look forward to seeing you again. Absolutely. Thank you all. We'll see you on another episode of All Things Caregiving. Take care.
This has been All Things Caregiving from Breathing Spaces.